History was made this November when Barack Obama was elected president, and that's what we're going to talk about today on Community Connections. Today on Community Connections, I have Pastor Aaron Gibson from Second Baptist Church here in Long Branch and hometown Congressman Frank Pallone from the third district. Sixth district. The old third. About 20 years ago.
But, 10 or so.
We're here to talk about something that we've been talking for the last 15 minutes or so before the show started, something none of us expected to see, the election of soon-to-be President Barack Obama. And I want to thank both of you for coming.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Did either one of you, we're talking it's December 2008, a year ago. Did either one of you expect this to have happened?
Absolutely not. I just didn't see it coming. I had hoped that this day would be a reality in my lifetime, but to say that I saw it coming a year ago, I certainly can't say that.
You know, Frank, you've been in Washington for a while now, and you mentioned you've met President-elect Obama. But when did you start to think this is the next president of the United States?
I guess after Iowa. In other words, before that, I never thought that he had a chance. But after Iowa, and then I was a Hillary supporter, and I went out to New Hampshire for Hillary. And at that point, Hillary was actually behind, and then she pulled it out and won in New Hampshire. But it was pretty obvious then that it was going to be down to the wire between the two of them. But before that, I never thought that he had a chance.
When you saw him in Washington, did other congressmen and senators think this man's going to be president, or did you see someone with a lot of ambition?
I think a lot of people thought that down the road that he could be president. I think that because he was a first-term senator and was so impressive, they figured he was running this year, and as a prelude maybe to run 4 or 8 years from now. So no, there was always, in the back of people's mind, he was always impressive, and people thought that he had a future, possibly as president down the road. But I think very few thought that he had a chance this year.
Yeah.
What was the reaction? I mean, I watched election night. I watched alone. I was nervous, and when it was announced a few minutes after 9 o'clock that Ohio had gone for Obama. That's, I mean, I've been watching numbers. I watch them in my own elections, but that's when it flipped a state. What was your reaction when you started to think he's going to win, personally?
I really felt that night that he was going to win. All of the polls leading up to that night had him ahead, and I really thought he had a strong chance in Ohio, and I thought he might even pull out Indiana. But when he pulled Virginia, I said, I think it's really a reality. I happened to be up in New Brunswick at the governor's rally, and at 11 o'clock, when they announced him to be president-elect of the United States, there was such a feeling of jubilation. And it wasn't just the African Americans in the room that were excited. I watched some of the elderly African American seniors literally cry, and but people from every culture, every ethnic group, they shared in this great moment. It was just a real sense of brotherhood where everybody was pulling together, and I have never experienced quite a moment like that. And we were hugging people that I didn't even know. There was just this coming together of everybody, and I thought that, and I guess what I really think is that Barack Obama is one of those figures that will really pull people together, not only in the United States, but I think around the world.
Congressman, I mean, one of the things you've mentioned to me is that the level of partisanship the last 8 years has been almost intolerable in Washington.
It's true. It really is.
But now we're also, as a country and as a world, we're facing problems that or far exceed anything that in our lifetimes, you know, since
No question. Since the Great
Depression.
Depression, probably.
Do you think that even there aren't going to be as many Republicans in Washington, do you think the ones that are there are going to be less partisan and the Democrats will be?
I hope so, Adam. I mean, I have to say that if you look at what Obama has done in terms of his choices for the cabinets and appointments so far, it's clear that he's trying to create unity. I mean, he obviously took some of his opponents, including Hillary and Richardson and Biden, I mean, almost every one of them actually on the Democratic Party, and has had them as vice president, secretary of state, cabinet offices. But in addition to that, he's tried to be bipartisan. He has Gates, you know, as the carryover for defense secretary, and other Republican names are being considered. So he's going out of his way to be bipartisan and create unity. The only problem I foresee, and I don't want to be a pessimist, is that the Republicans who remain standing, so to speak, in the Senate and the House tend to be the more conservative right wing. Unfortunately, many of the more moderate, you know, middle-of-the-road Republicans were defeated in this election. So there is the danger that, that the Republican reaction is not to join together.
But the problems, I don't think there's anybody in the country who doesn't look and think that the problems we're facing are much more serious than any other time. Do you think that conservative Republicans would want to still play that role, or do you think that everybody's
Well, I
going to
hope
recognize
not, but
that?
I mean, give you an example, you know, the biggest thing that's going to be necessary is this economic stimulus package. You know how important it is, you know, for the country, for the state, for the towns. And, you know, in the last few days, we've heard some of the leaders in the House and the Senate on the Republican side still say that they're opposed to it. I mean, we would have had that stimulus package much earlier this year, or even earlier, even in previous years, if it hadn't been for Republican opposition. So we have to see. I hope that at least initially they support that, because that is so important.